First time in a thrift shop, I bought a whole bunch of vintage stuff. I chopped it up, turned it into something else, and then people wanted to buy it. And, that's all the clue that I needed to know that I could keep going in this direction. And then it was my design, my customers basically that would say, well, Bridget, I love your brand because it's eco-friendly. So I'm like, what's eco-friendly? I'm doing it because it felt good and I was passionate about it. So then once you, kind of dig deep and start to research, then you're horrified. And then you feel like you kind of have to, just like you said, now you have to kind of bring other people in. You got to spread the word. You got to, share the information, because I was mortified when I found out all the horrors of fashion. So, once I found out the information, I felt like it was my job pretty much to spread that information. And then next thing you know, Random House asked me to create the book, which was definitely something I did not anticipate. And making a book put me on the map in 2008 as, a very early upcycler. 2008 is when the book came out, and then it's been, just one thing after another. Once the book came out, then the classes started. And once the classes started, the store opened. But it was definitely, I feel like I've been led, because this was definitely not something that I had planned at all. At FIT.
How, you got into this journey and how you started. And the second thing, because I'm actually so much interested to know about how did you write the book. So I'm going to ask the following question, which I have for me personally, which is, you were not so long in that space when you wrote a book, because you were fairly new, like 5-7 years.
Right.
How much knowledge in the meantime when you were writing a book you already had, and what was the challenges to find the correct information that you could write in the book, and how did it increase your knowledge when you were writing the book?
So my brand was Born Again Vintage, but at that time it was my tagline. So my original brand was BRT's Originals, and Born Again Vintage was a tagline. So they wanted it to be Born Again Vintage. So, that was easy for me because even though I've only been in that space like 5 years, but like I said, it was very natural for me to cut up stuff and turn it to other. I didn't even know it was a talent that I had. So the minute it was out, I would say it took a year and a half.
Yeah, for a new person, I think it's a great opportunity. And I heard all the time that people have ideas, or they write a book and they don't find the publishers, or they don't find the opportunities. But I think you got very lucky, and especially you put in the work.
And not only that, but even I had to send the pieces that I was going to use for the book first.
Mhm.
Then I upcycled all the pieces, sent it back to them. And, so I had nothing to do with the styling, the models. So the stylist actually for the book, did real magic, because I just did it was the prettiest book I've ever seen.
Now, we hopefully, God willing, the next podcast will be going all your, book session, the 25 is, because I read a little bit, and those 25 topics still relevant right now.
Yes.
So the next thing, when we had a intro call before this recording this podcast, you mentioned that you said sustainability is a natural way to live.
Yes. Well, when we take it back to the early days. You gotta understand, when you scraped your knee or you got a hole in your jeans, your mom would sew a patch over it. We got introduced to fast fashion, where we could get things a lot easier, simpler, and cheaper. Most of us went right, but the thing is, it is something that is inherently in our DNA.
Yeah, his son born last year, and he's kind of a special needs and all that. How can that be? And he was like, the plastic is everywhere, the microplastics in the water that we drink, the air what we breathe, and that's the thing.
Well, I mean, that's the issue when the clothing brands are not forced to be transparent with what they're using. They say athletic wear is probably the most dangerous of them all.
So we need to focus on, and the brands, like at Zayshin, we just try to be as transparent as we can, and try to use the sustainable practices so that doesn't harm the human being and the planet. So yes, that's a very great topic that we just talked, and of course people need to be aware about it. aware and to know what's going on and how to choose or how to find out what to select for their body, for their own, for the future self. So the next thing is about, because you're here in the before it called sustainable fashion and it got promoted, you were the one of the first.
Of course, I was there to make money, but also to spread awareness. And when I tell you, it was literally like pulling teeth.
Wow.
And so when they would stumble in there and see the stuff that I had, and you literally have to explain exactly what it is. So
I wish I could be here to see people's reaction on the $150 shirt where they can buy just a $5 tee.
So it's almost like us, where like once you stumble across something, then it's like, oh, I need to spread this information. The platform, as far as Sustainable Fashion Week, I feel like, supporting indie and emerging, in student designers is super important, because I feel like we really don't have anything that supports people that's just coming up.
Wow.
And I definitely don't feel like it's my responsibility, but at the same time, I do feel like I keep creating things to make sure these people are seen and they're heard and supported,
And what is actually one thing, I'm gonna ask this first, that you got into it, spread the awareness, met to the people, and try to get it done, and it get resolved.
When I think of the people involved, and not only that, but my class, the way it's grown in the past 15 years, the people that took it in the beginning, it was more like hobby.
But what is the one thing that you are now focusing on or try to teach in your class to your students to, some extra focus or whatever that is?
Well, I feel like I always try to challenge my students to do a 30-day initially, a 30-day no shopping challenge. Because I think once you get into that mode, it becomes like, what? I have 20,000 hoodies. Okay. I have 20,000 leggings.
So the next thing, and I'm most interested about, I to be honest, I'm interested in all of it. And even with the fast fashion clothes, you repurpose them, and the way you make it, the way you repurpose that, I don't see why people not gonna love that, as you told me before.
Also, born again vintage means, being able, of course, the most obvious is giving this vintage a second chance. So like I said, it's definitely super, super personal for me in more ways than one. But it also means, just really getting a chance to, to be happy and share and do different things with your life that you didn't anticipate.
And the other question is about why do you believe vintage clothing is so powerful in this fast-paced fashion world, where the trends are coming back to back twice a week now?
But we also realize that when you look at vintage clothing and you just realize how amazing it was made. I mean, the work, the craftsmanship, the detailing. Oh, I got this and or my grandmother passed it down. I mean, so then, so it forms a connection. Like no one is saying that about the fast fashion t-shirt that 10 other million people are wearing. Well, initially, so because of that challenge, I had to do a business plan, because I was, I made a sweater. So I would say the challenge really is the quantity, because what I would get was either somebody will love a piece, but let's say they're size 16 and it's a size 4, or vice versa.